Good morning. What a lovely day to be talking about strengthening families, childcare, and paid leave. Welcome to the White House Summit on Childcare and Paid Leave. My name is Lynn Johnson. I am the Assistant Secretary for the Administration for Children and Families in the Department of Health and Human Services, and I will be facilitating between our three panels today. It is truly an honor to work in an administration that cares so much about families and children. So please join me in welcoming Advisor to the President, Ivanka Trump, to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you and welcome to the White House Summit on supporting America's working families. Today, we are grateful to be joined by lawmakers, advocates, employers, state and local leaders, and childcare providers who all share a common mission. We want the United States to be and continue to be the best place in the world to live, to work, and to raise a family. This morning, we are glad to be joined by bipartisan members of Congress. Thank you, Senator Cassidy, Senator Rubio, Senator McSally, Senator Ernst, Senator Romney, Senator Capita, as well as Congressman Allred, Congressman Cunningham, Congressman Crenshaw, Congresswoman Wagner, and Congresswoman Walorski, who you'll hear from in just a little bit. Thanks as well to Governor Parson and Governor Bryan for being here. As we all know, the states are laboratories of innovation, so it'll be terrific to hear what's happening at a state level. Very importantly, I want to express my admiration for every parent in this room. Would you all please stand and be recognized? Please. A lot of you, and you don't get that enough. As a mother of 3 young children myself, I know that the hardest, most important, and most rewarding job on the planet is being a parent. I also appreciate that you, like me, are probably far more exhausted on a Monday morning than on a Friday night. We have come together today because we have a historic chance to pass paid family leave and childcare reform so that every American family has the freedom to embrace the dignity of work and the joy of raising a family. We recognize that balancing work and family is a deeply personal choice. That is why our vision is to give each parent the resources and support they need to make the best choice for their families. Under our pro-family, pro-worker, pro-American agenda, families have never had a brighter future. Since the election, we've created over 7 million new jobs. Unemployment has reached historic lows, and nearly 650,000 children being raised by single moms have been lifted out of poverty. It's really incredible. Through our Pledge to America's Workers, over 350 employers have committed to delivering over 14 million career and training opportunities. This is 14 million lives impacted, 14 million Americans who will have a better chance to learn the skills they need to succeed in a career that they love. As part of our historic tax cuts, we doubled the child tax credit. Now, to put this in perspective for some of you, as this is often referred to as a pet project of mine, this in year 2019 has impacted 40 million American families, each receiving an average of $2,200. Just remarkable. Incredible. We've moved the needle aggressively, but there's still much more work to do. In the last half century, the labor force participation of women with children has grown from less than half to over 70%. It's time to enact further reforms that reflect the changes taking place in our homes and in our places of work. Lack of childcare and paid leave is a family problem. It's not a woman's problem. Yet it disproportionately impacts women who provide the vast majority of our nation's unpaid care for our children and our adult dependents. It's been 25 years since the Family and Medical Leave Act was passed, 25 years, and we're still at 0 weeks of paid leave. 1 out of every 4 American moms returns to work within 2 weeks of giving birth to a child because she can't afford not to. Those least likely to receive paid leave from their employers are the ones who need it the most. Only 9% of low-income workers receive any form of paid parental leave. No mother should have to choose between staying at home with her infant and being fired from her job. That is why the president was the first president to include a national paid family leave program in his budget, and during the State of the Union, called upon legislators to pass paid family leave into law. He was also the first to enact paid family leave policy on a national level as part of tax reform, giving a tax credit to employers who offer paid leave to workers making under $72,000 a year, meaning the workers who are most unlikely to receive it. Just last week, members of Congress introduced the first ever bipartisan, bicameral paid parental leave legislation. I applaud those lawmakers, and many of them will join us here today for advancing new and fresh solutions. This week, the president delivered on another promise. After 3 years of relentless advocacy, Congress agreed to finally offer paid parental leave to all federal employees. It's amazing. As the country's largest employer, we must lead by example, and after decades are finally doing so. So as I say this, I'm looking into the audience and I see my chief of staff who's shaking her head no, who's not supposed to be here because she had a baby 4 weeks ago, but she really wanted to come and wouldn't miss this summit. And Julie, I've been fighting for this for you and for so many others for a long time, but since you had your baby 4 weeks ago, I don't know, we're going to have to make it retroactive. But Julie, stand up. You've done such an amazing job. Julie had her 4th child, a son, just 4 weeks ago, so I'm sorry I couldn't deliver for you. It was so close, but I'm grateful for your amazing hard work and excited to welcome you back soon. We were able to make significant progress as well on delivering high-quality, affordable childcare options. Today, the average cost of center-based care is roughly $10,000 a year, more than in-state tuition at many colleges. In geographically, roughly 50% of the nation, the cost of childcare is a family's single largest expense, even exceeding the cost of rent. Here with us today is Sheila Lucero from Wheat Ridge, Colorado, and the proud mom of 3 children. Sheila, will you please stand up? Sheila worked at a bank and loved her job, but after her youngest child was born, she had to quit because she couldn't afford childcare. Since, Sheila has overcome tremendous adversity, and now she works in human services for her local county, helping other parents secure the resources and support they need to work and care for their family. Thank you, Sheila, for your devotion to your family and community. Would you like to come up here and say hello? Sure. Come on up, Sheila. Sheila was not expecting to do this, but come on up, please. You have an amazing story.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for letting us share our stories to strengthen families and continue this to go forward. This is a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we're fighting for each other as peers. So thank you so much for your passion with this.
We're so
I
grateful.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you. Sheila
makes it look very easy. Great job, Sheila. To make sure that the cost of childcare never drives a family into poverty, last year the President signed into law the largest ever increase in funding to the Child Care and Development Block Grant Program, now expanding access to quality childcare for nearly 800,000 families across the country. You'll learn shortly from governors who are the beneficiaries of these block grants and allocate the funds to support working parents across their communities just how impactful this is. The largest increase in the history of the program, 40%. This morning, we're taking another crucial step. Today, we're releasing the White House principles for childcare reform. At the heart of our reforms is democratizing choice and control and giving it back to parents where it belongs. We are focused on improving the quality of care, expanding affordable options that meet the needs of each family, removing regulatory barriers that make it difficult to start in-home or faith-based care and education services. Amazingly, since 2005, there has been a reduction in childcare by close to 30%, almost all of it coming from the faith-based and in-home care communities. Together, we have an unprecedented opportunity. If we work together to put American families first, we can pass paid family leave, expand access to great childcare and early childhood education, and give parents greater freedom and flexibility to care for their children. Together, with the help of everyone in this room, we will support American families, build up our communities, strengthen our economy, and enable every child to grow, thrive, and achieve the American dream. Thank you all so much, and I'm looking forward to meeting and learning from you throughout the day. We appreciate your being here.
Thank you, Advisor Trump, for hosting us here today. And please join me in welcoming Governor Mike Parson, Governor Phil Bryant for a discussion on state-led innovations for working families, moderated by Joe Grogan, Director of the Domestic Policy Council here at the White House. We need 1 minute. So I just want to comment after I heard the Advisor Trump talk about the historical impact of her words. I'm empty nesting, and I certainly wish there had been an advocate that would have fought for the child care and for the paid leave when I was raising my children and looking for child care. So I value so much what we're doing today because it will matter for our children and our children's children into the future. So in just a few seconds, we will have the governors and Joe Grogan up here on the stage.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Morning, morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. My name is Joe Grogan. I'm the head of the Domestic Policy Council, and it's my pleasure to moderate this panel with two governors who are leading the fight for quality child care. So I think that's the first question is why, Governor Bryant, Governor Parson, and maybe we'll start with Governor Parson, why are you passionate about child care? Why do you think it's important for the citizens of your state, and why do you spend so much time when we know time is limited? Why are you focusing on this?
Well, first of all, on the personal side, as a father of a daughter and 4 granddaughters, what we do for the future of our states and that future workforce that Ivanka was talking about a while ago is so important, and to make sure people stay in the workforce. The number one priority when I became governor of Missouri, well, there's 2 priorities, of workforce development and infrastructure. But the workforce development, the daycare side of it, plays into the workforce side of it, is how do you keep people in the workforce? and not just talk about it here in Washington, D.C., but how do you really implement programs on that? So last year, we were able to fund $20 million to help with daycare across our state to try to make sure people could stay in the workforce, that single moms would have the opportunity to stay in the workforce, and they wouldn't be punished because they have children or they couldn't go to work. I think the other thing that we did on that, we took the family leave. When we heard of these initiatives through the administration, and Ivanka talked about these issues over a year ago in our state, and we finally implemented them where we now have family leave in Missouri of 6 weeks for families to be able to take off and to be with their kids. But the end result is trying to make sure that they maintain the workforce, to stay in the workforce, to be productive, and not be punished because of those things. And I think for way too long, we haven't did enough for that. But I think the big thing you got to do as a governor, frankly, is not talk about it, is put the funding behind it, put the programs behind it to really have a positive result. And I think by doing that, we're starting to reap the benefits of that now in Missouri, of how we're focusing on that and what we're doing for those families and for single moms. And as Ivanka said a while ago in her opening remarks, it's about the opportunity for those next generations coming up, and to make sure that those granddaughters that I just talked about have the same opportunities that most of us in this room have had. And not only that, to give them more opportunities. And you can see the private sector is way ahead of us in government and doing that. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, but you got to implement these programs and you got to be able to put them in place. But at the end of the day, you're going to benefit from them because people are staying in the workforce. And I think that's so important to me, to maintain that and to really work hard about trying to maintain that in the state of Missouri.
Governor Bryant?
Much the same. We've got 50,000 job openings in Mississippi, so if any of you want to come to Hospitality State, I'd find you a job. But where does that begin? We began to look back and say, now, where do these soft skills that every employer, they talk to me and say, look, I can teach them how to build warships. I teach them how to build radar systems at Raytheon. I teach them how to build Nissans and Toyotas. They need those soft skills. They need team building. They need conflict resolution. They need to be able to know enough language to express themselves and what their problems may be. And all of that, if we remember correctly, we learn that most of the time between birth and about 3. Now, our mothers, and I'm just like you, Governor, I've got grandchildren and children, so we used to tell them, y'all share that toy, don't fight. No, put that down, be careful, tell me what you need, I can't understand. All those things you really need to be a good employee, we understand beginning daycare, but you get a twofer for that. So when that mom comes to a federally funded daycare, $98 million a year, state of Mississippi's putting about $12.5 million in it, we ask her what she needs. Is this child on the CHIPS program? Can we ask you a few questions? Yes. Are you in a workforce training program? Well, no, but I'd like to be. Can we help you get that? Can we sign you up just now? Number one reason that women are not working, single moms, child care. So we've got to fund that. We worked hard. We had a line of about 1,600 children on a waiting list. The first thing we said is take care of that. There's no reason in the world 1,600 children should not be in a home. And oh, by the way, if their mom's single, that we don't find a good place for them. If we can find the mom and the dad, we need to get both of them in a workforce training program or back into jobs for American graduates so they can get their GED or they can graduate from high school. And then we must have a curriculum. My grandchildren are going to be okay. My daughter's a lawyer. I had to adjust my lawyer jokes after that, but they're going to be fine. I don't know what she's paying, but ladies, y'all know it's a lot. When my wife worked at the hospital, by the time she paid insurance and child care and taxes, she wasn't bringing anything home. So they're going to be fine. They better come out of there. It's a parochial child care, and they better know algebra and the Lord's Prayer when they leave there. But if you're going to a small child care center in Sunflower County in the Mississippi Delta where I was born, you probably don't have a curriculum. You probably don't have the books and materials you need, and you probably have a teacher. It was interesting. I've got a 1-year-old the other day, and we were having a Christmas event at my house, and my daughter came over and said, Dad, this is Philip's teacher. Philip's 1-year-old. He's 1 year old. And so this is his teacher, not the lady that keeps him. This is his teacher. So I got to thinking about that. That's exactly what those children in the Mississippi Delta need at 1 and 2. They need a teacher in that room. So we took all of those teachers and we said, we're going to take you over to our childhood academy and to our closest community college. We're going to train you in a curriculum that will blend with the pre-K program that they will have when they're going into school, and it won't cost you anything. And then we're gonna let everyone know that this is a certified child care center and that they have been to the program, so they have the curriculum in place. We'll bring these coaches out to your child care center. We'll look at it to make sure that you understand. And a lot of times these are maybe 20-year-old young ladies, 21, they graduate from high school, and they got 12 3-year-olds in the room. And we say, take care of them, make sure they're ready to read when they get out. Just hard to do. But the program we have seen now, our third graders, when I came into office, reading at 48% of our third graders reading on a third grade level. Our last test, which we increased the challenge of because we wanted to be at a national level, 85% of our third graders are now reading on a third grade level. It is no doubt because we started in that child care center, making sure we have a curriculum, making sure that we can pay those child care teachers, those teachers that are in those rooms with those children from birth to 3.
So you mentioned money. So as Ivanka mentioned, we've gotten a big increase of the president's leadership in the Child Care Development Block Grant. And I think both your states have seen big increases, maybe over a little bit over 40%. Do you want to talk about what you've done with the federal money and then how you leveraged it with state funds and what that means for your state?
Well, I think on the state level, when we take the federal funds and the state funds both, we're trying to figure out more resources to get to those single mothers, for those daycares that we have in the state. So one for like Missouri is basically a rural state to a certain degree. So we got a little rural, which makes it a little even difficult to get that daycare that you need. So how do you get that to the services that the parent needs to be able to take that child to? So I think one of the things we took the money and really started focus on, where do we need those facilities to be at? That was more important. You know, government sometimes can just develop a program after program, and all of a sudden you might have 10 facilities in the same area, where sometimes you need to spread that out, where it really makes a difference for somebody. One, how do you get that child to that center, and where is it? Because if you've all of a sudden got to drive 4 or 5 miles, you're already, again, in a city area or so many blocks, that can deter that parent from working, because that even becomes an obstacle. And they shouldn't have any more different than anyone else. But I think you take that money, you spend it wisely, number one, and how do you get the best bang for your bucks when you're putting it out there for people to utilize that? You know, on a personal side of this, you know, when I think about women in the workforce, and the governor mentioned the community colleges, I think it's important for the state of Missouri. We've sunk probably $60 million in the workforce development pieces, and the daycare is part of that to make sure we got people working. But 61% of the people in our community colleges right now, or our training sector, is women. They're wanting to go into the workforce, and they're wanting to be productive and not to have those obstacles of the child care side of it. But as somebody that was married to someone for 35 years now, that was in the banking industry for 40 years, that started from a drive-in teller to a senior vice president, time and time again, she managed the kids day in and day out. And not that she was managing kids, but she was overlooked time and time and time again to be a president. Young men come in and took that place of her, and a lot of that had to do is because she was a mother. She had children and things like that. And, you know, it's more important that with those funds that we have, that we also send the message out there that everybody should have the same opportunities. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, you should have the same opportunities. And I think that's why making sure you give them the tools they need, the women the tools they need to be successful, and they're not punished for that. You know, those are the things that I see. So when you're talking about how do I spend that state dollars and federal dollars, those are the things that we try to make policy about, that we try to figure out what is really the best thing for that child, what's the best thing for that mother, and how do you make it where they can still be productive and we're not causing a hindrance to them. I think that's how we look at those things. And when we look at policy, that's exactly the way we do it in Missouri.
In 2017, Dr. Lori Smith testified before Congress, and shortly after that, the state of Mississippi received an additional $35 million. So I want to send her back and get her to testify again and get you. Now heads the Women's Bureau for the Department of Labor. She was my education and workforce advisor for almost 8 years, so she does a remarkable job. So when we were able to receive those additional federal funds, we took care of that waiting list. So 1,600 children were on that waiting list and their families. You had to change the attitude. There is an attitude that if you want federally funded or you want subsidized daycare and you're a single mom or you're a mom, then you can find your own way. As the governor was saying, what if your car doesn't work? What if you don't have a way to get there? What if you don't know where the center's at? What if you don't know how to do the paperwork? What if you don't have a computer in your double-wide trailer and you can't download it? So we had to go out and aggressively start trying to find these moms and say, if you're on the waiting list, we want you in now, we got more money. And then we started an assessment of those daycares. So we looked at, do you need something? Is it warm enough? Do you have good food there? Do you have restaurants? You got to have those basic facilities. We asked the Department of Health to make sure and go out and certify that they were a safe, healthy environment. We really had to start at the basis, and the governor has exactly right. That child in rural areas, in an area of depression in Mississippi, deserves the same care and learning that a child does in Madison County, where the income's very high, where most of our professional couples live. And so the equity that we're striving for, we're able to get there because of what this administration and a lot in Congress and senators, thank y'all very much, have been able to do. But I will tell you, the other thing you've got to do is get the business community involved. This is a dynamic report, came out 2017 by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Workforce Today, Workforce of Tomorrow is by Catherine Stevens. Get her to come in and speak in your state. Dr. Stevens is dynamic. And so I had to get our state Chamber of Commerce believing their future workforce were in daycare centers all over Mississippi today. And once they took that on, we really took off. Now we've got businesses saying, how can I go out and help perhaps fund one of the daycare academies? How can I go out and help one of these centers through my company? Because I know in a few short years, that child is going to be sitting in front of my desk asking for a job at my company. That's when it really...
That's great. So we're running a little bit late on time, but I just want to say personally, again, from the Domestic Policy Council, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure for me to work on these issues with the team at the White House. It's a pleasure for me to work with Ivanka. I'm a father of 4 children, 8, 6, 4, and 2. My wife works in the federal government, and these issues are really important to me. And I can tell you when I'm confused about the correct direction on federal policy, my wife tells me exactly where we should be. So thanks very much.
Carson, Governor Bryant, and thank you, Director Grogan, for that discussion. We will start again in about 2 minutes as we make some changes to the stage. welcoming Dr. Lori Todd Smith, the Director of the Women's Bureau at the Department of Labor. Will moderate a panel on having a path forward on paid leave with a very distinguished guest, Senator Cassidy, Senator Rubio, Senator McSally, Senator Ernst, Senator Capito, and Senator Romney. Let's give them a round of applause.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Lori Todd Smith, and I serve as the Director of the Women's Bureau at the United States Department of Labor. Our goal at the Women's Bureau is to encourage an economy that allows families the opportunity to thrive. Paid family leave not only helps women and men have access to the labor force, but this critical bonding time is so important for the development of children, our future workforce. So as a longtime educator and researcher and advisor on education and workforce issues, I want to express my gratitude to the President, to Senior Advisor Ivanka Trump, and to everyone here. The topics of childcare and paid family leave have been elevated over the last few years, more than I've seen any time in my almost 30-year career so far. So to lay some groundwork, there are 7 million open jobs in the United States. More Americans are coming off the sidelines to join and grow in the workforce. The unemployment rate of 3.4% matches a 50-year low. Jobless claims dropped to a 7-month low last week. And prime age women, ages 25 to 54, are fueling the momentum with an increased labor participation rate of almost 77%. So as our economy continues to flourish, it's the mission of the 21st Century Women's Bureau to continue seeking pro-growth economic policies that benefit families and businesses. We want parents to have the opportunity to access and the choice to remain in the labor force. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our panel today. I'd like you to hear directly from the architects of the proposals that are in Congress now. And we'll go through one round of questions each. And if time allows, we'll have additional questions for an open discussion. So Senator Rubio, I'm going to start with you. Since you were the first one to lead on this topic, what would be the advantage to working families of having a paid leave policy?
I mean, the advantage is the ability to not have to go on public assistance or debt when you have a child, because you can't afford to go 2 or 3 weeks without working. And the irony of it is that the people who can least afford to do that are the ones who are least likely to have paid leave, and the ones who make the most money and the ones who can most afford to do it are the ones that are most likely to have it. So for me, it's a very basic argument. The purpose of public policy should be to serve our national interest. It's in our national interest to have strong families, and parenting is at the cornerstone of strong families and ultimately of a strong country. And the cornerstone of families is parents, especially those first early weeks after birth that are so critical for both the mother, who may or may not be recovering herself from the delivery, but also the child, since there are limited and very expensive options for care for a newborn, even 2-3 months.
Great. Thank you so much. Senator Cassidy, as the chairman of the Senate Paid Leave Working Group, what discussions have there been related to a bipartisan path forward?
There's a couple ways to answer that. First, I'll say that on the staff level, we've been meeting. There's a planned Senate level roundtable plan for early next year. But I would argue the more important discussion is happening outside of our subcommittee. The very fact that we have Democrats and Republicans and that we have a range of policy issues is that in itself is probably the more important thing. And I'll also say the fact that we have a range of rationales, what Marco just mentioned is so true. As a physician, I'll pick up on what you said, Lori. The idea that the child can stay home and the mother can breastfeed has health benefits both for the mother and for the child, not just for that first year of life, but potentially for a lifetime. And so, yes, there's been discussions on a staff level, on a Senate level. More importantly, there's been on a whole Senate level, and the rationales are multiple. And I just mentioned one as a physician, others will mention one as parents and grandparents, and I think that's the most important thing.
I think that's an excellent point. Thank you so much. Senator Ernst, the Women's Bureau held listening sessions all over the United States last year, and we heard consistently that the key component of any paid leave plan must include flexibility for parents. So as co-sponsor of the Cradle Act, could you talk a little bit about what the key components are in a good plan?
Yes, absolutely. And the Cradle Act, which Senator Mike Lee and I have introduced, does allow for that flexibility. And so I would say flexibility is key in any plan that goes forward, not necessarily mandates. We certainly don't need additional government mandates. And it should be allowed for mothers and fathers to take that opportunity to spend time at home with their or their newborn child or newly adopted child. And of course, for the American taxpayer, as budget neutral as possible. So those are some of the key components that we would like to see. But certainly, just as Dr. Cassidy had just said, allowing a mom or a dad to be home in those initial weeks, I think Marco had talked about this as well, it has benefits that really can't be measured initially. So, having these key components in any plan and allowing mom and dad to stay home, lending to, future benefits for that child, very, very important. But again, flexibility, no heavy-handed mandates, as budget neutral as possible, and something that works for both moms and dads.
Senator Romney, I might be representing the Women's Bureau, but we know that both mothers and fathers should have access to paid leave. As a father and a grandfather, can you speak about the importance of this?
Be happy to. There's no question but that in the life of a couple, that the birth of a child is perhaps the most momentous thing they will ever experience. And both the mom and the dad want to be part of that experience. Also, from the life of a child, the first months of that child's life have enormous impact on the development of their brain, on the development of their entire life's course ahead. So allowing both parents, if both parents are together, to have participation in those early months with a child is really critical, both for the child and for the parents. I would note that Senator Rubio and my legislation that he crafted, which is called the New Parents Act, is focused on providing funding for both the mom and the dad, if there are two parents involved in the home, to be able to pull retirement benefits from their Social Security benefits to bring them forward at a time that they can pay for 3 months, up to 3 months of being able to stay home. Now, I'd also note that there are some employers that will provide this on their own, which we highly encourage. As has just been negotiated, the government is going to provide this for government employees, and we hope many, many private employers do the same thing. But for those that don't, allowing individuals to pull from a future benefit, such as Social Security, to provide for their financial needs while the child comes home is an enormous benefit. We'd like to see it happen for both moms and dads.
Thank you so much. Senator Capito, we heard earlier on the panel with the governors that access to quality, affordable child care is a barrier to employment sometimes for the retention for many parents in the workforce. What do you think the impact of paid leave would be on America's families, and how do you think that would help families remain in the workforce or attached to the workforce?
Well, I first of all want to say that I think the step that we're taking with the NDAA and putting 2.1 million parental leave for federal employees is a monumental step for us to say as a country that we value and we recognize the tremendous importance of those first few months of a child's life and that couple's life as they're beginning their family. So I think this is a good week for us, a good month, and so I think the best caretaker, in my view, as I view it from my own family, I don't have as many grandchildren as Senator Romney, I can tell you that right now. But I've observed the 3 children that I have who all 6 parents work, the struggles of the first trying to find suitable childcare, trying to cover when one of the children gets sick, because inevitably that happens in a daycare setting, and who's going to stay home, who has the more important meeting, and to have those questions sort of laid to rest because of the availability of parental leave for either, building in the flexibility, like Joni said, is incredibly important. You can kind of hopscotch one another. Maybe you don't both take your family leave at the same time. You can elongate the ability to stay home and nurture that child and buy all of the things that we all know newborns require, which is very, very expensive, particularly in that first several months of life. So I think what it would do is keep the child, the flexibility of having a child in the home with their parents, with the best caretaking, and then let those parents take those first several weeks to figure out what is a good caretaking situation for our child, who has the best care. It's not a natural. Some people can plan it months and years in advance, but for most parents, it's a shocking event when you bring the little child in and all of a sudden your whole life and your whole focus changes so tremendously. So I think this is a real opportunity to really make families stronger, and I think that, and make the workforce stronger at the same time.
Excellent, thank you. So, Senator McSally, as I mentioned earlier, my heart's in Mississippi, where I'm from, but I was originally born in Arizona. So it's nice to see another Arizonian advocating for families. Why do you think it's important for Congress to lead on paid family leave?
Well, I think this is great that we're all up here advocating for this because it's important for us to set policies that are going to be pro-family and pro-worker. When I was in the House, I started a Women in the Workforce working group, specifically because I wanted to address the issues of equal pay and see what some of the underlying challenges were. And so we had several hearings from think tanks and academia and private sector, also field hearings in Arizona, and the same themes you're hearing today, and that you did in the some of the meetings that have been going on over the last year came out, which is we have a lot of really tired women out there. I meet them all the time when I'm back in Arizona. They're trying to stay in the workforce, they're trying to be good parents, they're caregivers for their parents as well, and these barriers of flexibility, of access to affordable child care and paid family leave are three of the main driving factors that are impacting their families. And so our approach needs to be something that's pro-family to support them without heavy-handed government mandates that are going to be hurting small businesses and job creators. And there are wonderful ways that have been proposed to do this. I want to, also laud Senator Cassidy working with Senator Sinema from Arizona, who was invited but had a conflict, to have the bipartisan proposal that I'm a co-sponsor of to just provide the ability for families to have that child tax credit. And Bill, you can talk more about your bill, but to be able to get $5,000 flexibility if they choose to forward that child tax credit. We worked really hard in the tax bill that we passed in 2017 to double the child tax credit and preserve the child independent care, child care tax credit, because it was so important part of this public policy, but we still have more to do. And so I think the bipartisan solutions that we can work together on, we've got to get it through a divided government that's helping small businesses, helping families, and having pro-family policies is the way to go. And that's why these conversations are so important.
Excellent, thank you. So I have a few open questions to whoever would like to take it, but I have a feeling I know which one's going to address this one. But it's one that's near and dear to my heart that we touched on already. Studies show that health and brain development is critical in the years 0 to 3. How does paid leave help strengthen the future of students of work and workforce on that?
Yeah, Senator Romney mentioned how brain development, and I think he spoke well. But just in terms of, there's evidence that it's clear that if a child breastfeeds, and again, our bill, we have a separate bill that Senator McSally mentioned, and it's available both for the father and for the mother. But typically, obviously, if you're going to breastfeed, it's going to be the mom. If the mama breastfeeds, then the child is much less likely to have something called enteral necrolysis. Yeah. I'm a gastroenterologist, so I should know this well. But it's where the child's intestine just kind of dissolves, if you will. A terrible disease. They're less likely to have atopic or eczema, atopy or eczema. They may be less likely to have leukemia. There's evidence that the child will be less likely to be obese long term, less likely to have ear infections. That persists going down the road, so the child's less likely to miss school because he has an ear infection, and mama is less likely to have to miss work to take her child to the pediatrician because the child has an ear infection. So the health benefits just go on for years. And also there's some evidence for the mother as well. So I think that if we're going to think holistically how to improve outcomes in healthcare while lowering cost, people may not think of this, but these pieces of legislation actually feed into that. My gosh, good for the mama, good for the child, and others can speak about how it's good for society, but it's a win, it's a win, it's a win.
I have one more benefit.
Yes.
You save a lot of money. That formula is expensive.
Yes, it is. Yes.
That's one more. I'm just telling you. That's it. I'm not sure the price is.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Oh, thank you. If I could add, beyond the health benefits as well, we have seen other studies that show that children that have had that bonding time with mom or dad in those first early months, they have even better behavioral outcomes in the future, and they are better adapted as children, as teens, and then as adults. And so I think that the long-term benefits of that initial bonding time it even goes beyond the health benefits, but actually further behaviors too.
I was going to note that I know this is an important issue for people in all states, but my state happens to have the youngest population in the entire country and the highest birth rate. And so we got a lot of families. I have 24 grandkids, so I know personally what's happening with a lot of kids. And it is an extraordinary burden for young families in many, many cases. To be able to care for the children at the time they come home from the hospital. And as Senator Shelley Moore Capito just indicated, at other times when they're sick as well. And all of us on this stage have proposed legislation which does not cost the government more money, does not require new taxes, does not require mandates. It allows individuals the flexibility to bring forward a future benefit which they're entitled to under government law. They can bring forward that future benefit at a time when they need it most, which is when a child is coming home or when a child is sick. This is an extraordinary opportunity we have, and we have different views about how much money and how it should be administered and so forth, but we can all come together. I'm convinced we can all come together on a bipartisan basis. And now is the time, given what's been done with regards to the federal employee child care provisions, this is a time I believe that's ripe for Republicans and Democrats to come together on a proposal to help every parent across the country. Single moms, married couples, we need to provide help.
You know, I go ahead. I was going to say an added benefit that's an offshoot. Obviously, healthy parents are more equipped to raise a healthy child. But if you think of the flexibility of parental leave, particularly for the mother, who doesn't drop out of the workforce for the first 5 years of that child's life until they have more consistent schooling and more reliable schooling, that mother in particular, you read studies where when they drop out of the workforce, they fall back in terms of earning ability and earnings capabilities. And that's not good for the mother and the family, but it's not good for the business community either, because they're missing the diversity of their workforce, particularly at some of the higher levels. And I think this is a much broader reach into our economic fabric, certainly the family fabric, and certainly for many, many women who are in the workforce trying to figure out how to get back in, how long can I stay out. This I think is a huge benefit.
Of African American women are the primary breadwinner. 51% of Hispanic women, 52% of Hispanic women, 51% of white women are the primary breadwinner. And we hear stories, especially the working poor, single moms, who are going back to work a day or two later, and then leaving their infant with a neighbor or someone who's not even in a safe environment. So the impact that this is having on the child, the impact that it's having on the chance for success for that child, the impact that's having on the mother and her own health and well-being is extraordinary. So these policies are smart and they're good for especially these families, but single moms who are struggling to work and trying to provide for their families. This is really an important policy.
And just embedded in all this, it strikes me there's a common sense principle. Who's in? It's Huawei.
Here to help.
It says Huawei. I don't know what. I'm kidding. It's a joke, guys. There are cameras there. There's a common sense element to this, right? America is not a piece of land. America is not an economy. America is a nation made up of human beings. And human beings, no matter how smart we get, no matter how advanced we get, human beings are meant to be raised by adults, preferably their parents. And any policy that makes it easier for parents to do that is good for the country. It's as simple as that. I mean, we don't have to get too complicated about it. So I think it's important to keep reminding people that this is something that's good for the country. Because every moment parents can spend helping raising their children is a net benefit for America in the short, in the long, and in the midterm, which, as some have pointed out, I think here a moment ago, I think it was Senator Ernst, which you can't measure initially in economic numbers, but which benefits across the board from health to societal to economic are extraordinary.
Running a little short on time. I'll give you each one more quick opportunity to give last thoughts on the topic. I'll start with you.
Yes, thank you. I do want to thank Ivanka Trump as well for polling so many of our members together, both Republicans and Democrats, and really flexing her muscle on the importance of this issue. It is a tremendous issue. And I do think that we can find a path forward and come together and allowing moms and dads that bonding time with their infant child, their newborn child. Very important for, just as Senator Rubio said, for not only the today, but the tomorrow as well for our country. So I look forward to working more on this topic with so many phenomenal members.
Yeah, and I'll echo what everyone up here has said. If we successfully implement these policies, there is some family that because of this policy, their life will be tangibly better. And not only will their life be better, their child's life will be better. Scripture says about how terrible things can pass down from generation to generation. This is a wonderful thing that will pay off upwards for generation to generation. And I'm not sure there's that many public policies we have that we can confidently say that of. This is one of them.
I was just going to add on the political side, this is a bipartisan, bicameral issue. I think that we have Bill's bill is the bill that has both Republicans and Democrats, and from the House and the Senate, and many other ideas that are moving around. But we can't do this one party alone, and because of the reasons that Bill has just very eloquently lined out. So we're your partners. We're ready to. You all are doing a lot of the hard work, and I've already talked to a couple in my state. And thank you for what you're doing.
And just briefly, I would say that if you did this event 2 years ago, you wouldn't have, and we need Democrats, this has to be bipartisan, but if you did this 2 years ago, there wouldn't be one Republican sitting up here. Today, there's 6, there could be 7, maybe as many as 8. That's just in the Senate. And I do think the president and Ivanka Trump deserve a tremendous amount of credit for driving this initiative as well and making that possible. I think it's a great development for our country that's become a bipartisan issue.
I just note that for many individuals, their purpose in life, that which they live for, is raising the next generation. And helping them do so is a mission that we should all sign on to. And I'm happy to be part of that effort.
Well, I just want to say, hopefully this brings you all hope that sometimes Washington, D.C. can be a crazy place. But these are issues that we can come together on in a bipartisan way in order to support all our constituents and the future of our country together. And this is Republicans, Democrats, House and Senate, working with President Trump. Ivanka has been a amazing champion of these issues, and she is relentless, and she's been a wonderful partner. And so together we can actually move this forward and get something done that's going to help American families. So it's a real blessing and an honor to be a part of this.
All right, and thank you to the panel.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Senators, for highlighting your progress on paving the path toward paid leave. This is very exciting. We'll give it one more minute while we get ready to set the stage for our next panel. All right, we are ready. So we will now have members from the House of Representatives to share their perspectives on paid leave. So please join me in welcoming Representative Crenshaw, Representative Wagner, Representative Walorski, Representative Cunningham, and Representative Allred. Let's give them a round of applause. Good, thank you. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. How are you? Great to see you again.
This one. Okay, hold on. Okay. Hello, welcome back. see if this is on. I am on. We just concluded, as you know, a fantastic panel with the senators. And now we'll hear from members of the U.S. House of Representatives who have taken a leading role in advancing paid leave. Again, my name is Lori Todd Smith. I'm the director of the Women's Bureau at the United States Department of Labor. My experience over the last 30 years has been focused on education, workforce, and early childhood development. As child's early relationships are critical in shaping brain development, specifically for the first 3 years of life. A child's early learning connections is so important in shaping their brain development, specifically for those first 3 years. So a person's ability to contribute to society and workforce begins at birth. It's critical that investments in early childhood begin on day one, in the most crucial time of brain development. Just some food for thought as we add to the conversation on why paid leave is so important. So let's get to it, directly hearing from the people who are leading on this work. We'll go through one round of questions, and if time allows, I have additional group discussion questions. So I'm going to start with Representative Walorski. As a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, what would be the advantage to working families of having a paid leave policy, and how do you think that would benefit our nation's economy?
Sure, thank you very much, and thanks to all of you that are here today. I can tell you, we've been looking for about the last year on what the concept of paid time leave would look like. And one of the things that we did is a deep dive in the private sector to look at what are small businesses doing, what can we do to better get women off the sidelines back into the working economy, how can we do that without mandates, and how can we do that where small business can be a big part of this as well. So one of the things that we've been looking at is the concept of using the private market as a partner. There's a lot of companies already out there in this country that have paid parental leave. And if you look at what the private sector is doing, which is kind of all over the map, but something that we could do as a phase-in, a phase one, I think are really targeted towards women and millennials that absolutely want to spend quality time with their families. They want to do more things than just, being at work. They're great employees. They've been there a long time, or in this case, millennials getting into the market. But we looked at ways that we could pool resources together, be a partner with the government, not necessarily having it just purely government funded. But we got so much great information back from the private sector that, and passing the National Defense Authorization budget with the paid time off piece that's in there right now, looking at mothers having children, adopting children, or adopting or foster care. I think when you look at those three principles in this country, and we already have an example in front of us today, we've just found in all the research we've done, getting women off the sidelines and back into the workforce is one of the best things we can do for certainty and security in our own country. So I am grateful having a chance to chat with all of you today, and I'm very grateful the National Defense Authorization budget has actually put a set in stone example of where we're heading in this country in a bipartisan area, in a bipartisan arena.
Great, thank you so much. Representative Cunningham, you are a self-described dadvocate. I love that term. As a father, can you also speak to the importance of ensuring that both parents have access to paid leave?
Yeah, absolutely. And, my son Boone is at home right now, and he's almost, is this thing on?
Yeah, it is.
Is that better? All right. It's lighting up now, so I think it means something. My son Boone's at home, and he's almost 2 years old. And our journey was a little bit non-traditional, should you say. We did our big rollout announcing that I was running for Congress, and literally the next day, my wife found out she's pregnant. And so it's just like buckle in. And the first year and a half has been quite a ride, obviously, with everything else. But, at the end of the day, it's a team effort. And, she had a complicated pregnancy and delivery where she lost a lot of blood and had a transfusion and was in the hospital. And I was working for a small law firm. And the law firm was already being, open enough with me campaigning. And she delivered our son on Saturday, and on Monday I was back at work. And, that's the reality for a lot of people, because less than 10% of employers in our country offer paternity leave. And, I regret that. I regret not being able to be at home with her more, especially during those first critical few weeks. Number one, for the bonding of my son, Boone, and also just being there for my wife. And, it's tough. It's really tough. There's no manual for having kids, and you come home with this baby, and you're like, what do I do now? And he's crying, you don't know why. And so when we're getting launched into that, it's tough, and it's emotionally draining. And I think just being there for your significant other, for the person you love, it just means the world, and it takes a unit. It truly does. And so that's why I think that some of the other countries are far ahead of us in this realm, and we need to play catch up, because and it's not only just the right thing to do, but I do think that it benefits our country and benefits economically later on down the road, just to keep families together and during those hard times, those tough times emotionally. So I think it's more traditional in the past, where we offer leave for just the mothers, but the spouses as well need to be on that same level too. And I'm glad to see that we're moving that way in a bipartisan way, Democrats and Republicans, because we're humans first before we get up here, and we're fathers and we're mothers, and yeah, and hopefully after too. But the
Freudian slip.
Right. I'm glad to see the face of Congress changing too. We came in a very powerful freshman class with a lot of young people, and who have these experiences, and who can hopefully transform these experiences into legislation that impacts everyone.
So much. Okay, Representative Crenshaw, you're the co-sponsor of the New Parents Act. Why do you think it's important for Congress to lead on paid leave?
Well, there's a deeper reason, and I think it's the sustainability of our civilization. We're as being a millennial, we're getting married later, we're having kids later, and there's a variety of factors for that. Cultural factors, societal factors, but possibly this factor as well, the fact that it's difficult to have kids and it's difficult to afford it. So there's a reason I think we should lead on it, and there's vast agreement that there should be some kind of program there. And then the question becomes, how do you do it in a sustainable way? Okay, and how do we do it without really overburdening those same children that we want to have with an increasing debt on an unsustainable program? So we have to get creative about how to do that, and I think that's exactly what this panel is about. Everybody here has sort of different ideas on how to do that. The concept remains basically the same. We're trying to borrow from benefits that we already have. So the New Parent Act, which Representative Wagner is on as well, and brought me on. So thank you. She's really the leader on this one in the House. I just want to be clear about that. And I'm proud to be part of it because it makes sense. Okay, fiscally it makes sense, and it makes sense for the core idea that we're getting at, that everybody here is talking about, which is we already have an aging society, and that's going to put pressures on us fiscally and culturally that are going to be very difficult. We have to address that. We're seeing it play out in other nations. We're actually doing pretty well in America. You look at Japan or China or Europe, they're a vastly aging population, and that puts pressures, like bad pressures on their fiscal situation that we're going to be viewing as well and dealing with. And having kids is the way out of some of those problems. Whether it's a New Parent Act or the other proposals out here, a smart, creative way to address that problem is what we should be talking about. And so I'm just proud to be part of that.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, Representative Wagner, the Women's Bureau held listening sessions across the country. I mentioned this in the earlier panel on paid leave. We consistently heard about flexibility and how important that is in the plan. What do you think are the key components for a good plan?
Well, flexibility is very, very important mainly for the parents, but also for the employers. You've got to be able to work with your employers to build a paid family leave program that works for business and works for the new parents. I mean, we're hearing on this panel now. I was paid family leave before paid family leave was cool. Okay, I'm not just a mom. I'm a grandmom, and have employed countless young people who are new parents. And I think it's a shame that we are the only country in the industrialized world that does not have a full-on paid family leave program. And I insist that we're going to fight for that. And I have in everywhere that I've been employed. I started it, the family leave program, when I was at the Republican National Committee, the first one ever, and have carried that on once getting here to Congress. Yesterday, huge victory with NDAA. What a win-win. And to lead, I mean, I have to give tremendous kudos to our leadership on both sides of the aisle in Congress, to our president, who feels very passionately about paid family leave, to Ivanka Trump, who's brought us all together on this. And what the New Parent Act does is adds maximum flexibility in terms of taking you can take 1 month, you can take 2 months, you could take 3 months. You could take breaks in between. You could do a month and then take half days. And whatever you want to build is what we want, without mandates, without raising your payroll tax, something that's budget neutral, that offers the kind of flexibility that both employers and that young parents want. What we've heard on this panel from some of the young dads and soon-to-be dads, I'm sure, and moms, is that this is a time, having a child is a time of great joy, but it can also be a time of anxiety, especially when you're young and you're working and it's all new and you've got rent to pay and mortgages and food, and then there's diapers and sleepless nights and all the things that come with this incredible joy of being a parent. And we need to make this as positive as an experience for the parents and for that newborn precious child, and then work out for the employer too. And I do believe that paid family leave will enable especially moms to get back into the workforce sooner, faster, and stay there. They're less dependent upon government programs. Oftentimes, as a result, they get back to work, and that's eventually what we want. So I think that it's good from an economic standpoint, good for our children and our families. We can make it good for our businesses, and I am just so pleased and proud that we, certainly as a Republican Party, are finally talking about this and moving things forward on a bipartisan basis. So I'm grateful for the movement we've seen, for the outcrying of support, and listening to our constituents and doing the right thing for our families.
Great, thank you so much. One more question. You've been waiting patiently. Representative Allred, as you know, this is a bipartisan topic and it needs support across party lines in order to become a reality. What do you think is a realistic path forward?
Well, thank you. And is this on? Okay, there we go. As Ann was talking about sleepless nights, I was thinking about my son Jordan, who I was up with from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. last night. My wife and I, like Joe, we planned very well. We had a baby a month in to my time here in Congress. We don't have a leave policy for members of Congress, so I gave myself 2 weeks off. It wasn't off, of course. You know, it was changing a lot of diapers and helping out and being there. And I'm glad that we do have bipartisan efforts around this, because this is not a partisan issue. Everyone is going to experience the same things, and they're going to need their government to do everything we can to try and give them some flexibility. So we have a bill that Elise Stefanik and I introduced in the House, that Dr. Cassidy and Kristen Sinema introduced in the Senate, to bring forward child tax credits, allow people to take up to $5,000 of the child tax credit in their first year, just to give people flexibility. It's not everywhere I want to get. It's not the end goal that I would end up with, but that flexibility I think is incredibly important. And some of these smaller steps that we're taking, although I think the NDA is not a small step, I think it's a really big step. But I think they're going to lead us down the road of getting to a bipartisan consensus, hopefully around a national program here. And we have to. I think the people expect us to do this. And I think all the tensions that Dan mentioned are very real. These are things that are going to just be increasing. And in our modern society and with all the demands that are placed on parents, we're going to have to be responsive to that. I was raised by a single mother. My mom taught in public schools. And I can tell you that families are making tough choices out there. They're making very, very tough choices. And when you have a child come along, whether through adoption or you give birth to one, those choices become even tougher. And so anything that we can do to ease that tension and to make sure that these folks remain productive citizens, productive workers, that their kids get that crucial early days with their family members is so important. The Department of Labor, when I took my my leave from Congress back in February when our son was born, we did a press release and we attached a Department of Labor study about the importance of paternity leave and how important it is and how the outcomes are better for families overall when men take leave as well. That the outcomes are better for the women, outcomes are better, less violence in the home, better economic outcomes. It's really, there's very few things you see that have such a positive impact across the board as when you have both parents taking leave and both having time off. And so I think we're all trying to work towards that, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that even in this climate that we're in now, that we're trying to find bipartisan consensus on these issues. And I agree with Anna. I think this is what our folks expect of us, and that's what they sent us here to do.
Excellent, excellent. To kind of piggyback on what you just talked about a little bit, I'll throw a general question out. You're all welcome to respond. But a newborn baby, parents with a newborn baby, parents have this tremendous financial impact with the expenses of the first year of life. Can you talk a little bit about how paid leave helps support the financial stability of the family? Whoever wants to take it.
Well, I'm happy to start off. We can go down the line, but I think it's critical because remember that when childbearing age is young. I was able to take advantage of a major corporation that had a paid leave program, but I also, with one of my children, was on my own. And as I said, the expenses that come from running a household as a young married couple and the expenses that come from a newborn child are key. So this is a critical point in time where some amount of money, whether you're doing what Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio, and Dan Crenshaw and I have been working on by taking an advance on your own Social Security, once you've paid in for a certain amount of time, but an advance on your own Social Security, so take it early, knowing that upon retirement, you've got three choices. You can pay a little bit more back for a period of time. You could delay for a year or two, or you could do what I would have done, which is I would have taken that money when I was 20-nothing years old, and then just paid it back when I was 40-something years old, when I was a little bit more financially stable. So the key here is to recognize how important it is to provide some kind of money and support to a new family as they are venturing into this exciting joy of a new child, because it makes a difference. Every dollar makes a difference. And if you've got enough money to feel comfortable in doing staying home with the child, I do believe you're more likely to go back into the workforce. You're less likely, as I said, to end up on a dependent government program long term. I think there are great benefits for our society, for economy, and I think it's allowing us, that the CTC, on the child tax credit advance, the same kind of concept, where they're able to get a chunk of money early on that then is slowly, gradually paid back as they get their feet on the ground more. So that early amount of money, that paid leave program for both moms and dads is key.
Excellent. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think an area that we looked at as well in Ways and Means was the financial stability to single moms that are out there and how connected they are to this concept of paid time off. And if there's one consistent message that I hear in my district, and we are involved in my district in a lot of frontline, right there, help and different kinds of programs and different kinds of ways to connect single moms with still having their part of the American dream and to be able to be successful. We look at this as a bridge, a new bridge, a bipartisan bridge, and a bridge that literally is created, I think, out of the heart and passion of this president. And, you know, when Ann mentioned this a second ago, I thought about the first time I met with Ivanka Trump, which was months ago, on this issue. And nobody else in government was talking about it. There was no concept. There was no putting anything together. It was kind of Republicans haven't really shown a whole lot of interest in that. And I have been amazed myself for the work that we've been able to do in our districts and then come back and report that information. And the unbelievable partnership between what Ivanka's done to get this done through the NDAA as a great place to look at as a model. And then you're going to hear from the president soon, his passion for the American worker to get men and women off the sidelines back into establishing healthy, successful families so they can reach the American dream. And I'll tell you, this is one of the most passionate group I've ever worked with. And in government, this is the fastest I've ever seen something turn around as this is turning around. So I'm telling you, for all of you out there that have supported this, from our president and from Ivanka, I am honored to be a part of this. And I do believe that next year we'll see rock solid legislation with everybody's heads together, opening a whole new door for the American people. And I think it's going to be a bridge of hope for single moms.
And I'll just add, reiterate that government has a strong interest in keeping families together. You know, they're less likely to be dependent upon government programs and money. And you know, those of us who have at one point lived paycheck to paycheck and hand to mouth realize that, you know, the strain of being, financially strapped is not just what you can and can't buy, but it's the emotional toll it takes on you. And, you know, I remember my wife telling me stories that her being in a room with her little sister and hearing the yelling and the screaming next door from her parents. And it's all based upon money. It's all based upon, not having the resources to buy X, Y, or Z. And so, and that's oftentimes what leads families to breaking apart. It's the financial stress. So by leaving it, it's not just about buying what you need to buy, but it's about relieving that anxiety and relieving those pressures and making families more likely to stick together because some of their problems are alleviated. And I think that's at the core of it. That's why this is so important.
Excellent point.
Can I emphasize the flexibility aspect of this? And this is, again, just being a millennial, even on the elder spectrum of the millennials. I understand what we like, right? And we like flexibility. And we also understand something very fundamental, which is that the best indicator of your wealth is your age. So the older you are, the more likely it is that you're wealthy. So if you're in your late 60s and you're about to retire for on Social Security, there's a good chance that you've had the time to build up assets, build up a business, build up savings. And wouldn't you like to give that money right back to your 25-year-old self, 30-year-old self while you had your first baby? Of course you would. Of course you would choose to do that, right? And that's the whole concept behind the New Parent Act. And it's a really good concept. It doesn't add to our long-term debt. And it provides that flexibility, and it also keeps some skin in the game, right? It's not a handout, right? You're just borrowing from your future benefits, and you know that you have to pay that back because you know that having a child is an investment, just like everything else you do is an investment, whether you're taking out a student loan or getting your first mortgage. Your family is an investment, and this allows you to invest in that without all the worries that a lot of new parents, I think, inherently understand.
And add to that, with the New Parent Act, it also it is the solvency of the trust fund is not touched. Anybody who's a current or a future Social Security beneficiary is not impacted in any way, shape, or form. The business owner is not either. It is truly, we have to start thinking about this as our own money in advance on what is ours, whether it has to do with the tax credits or whether it has to do with your Social Security benefit. And when you talked about the economics of it, the flexibility of it, the anxiety, the stressors. It's during that early time period when you're not as financially stable, and that's what we're trying to provide. And that's what we're excited about.
Excellent point. So we just have a few minutes left. It went fast. You all talk really well. How about we just do last thoughts again at the end here, and then I have a couple of comments at the very end. So we'll start with you at the other end this time and work this way. Would you like to go first? Last thoughts on paid leave, Michelle?
I just got my last thoughts in, frankly, and as well, maybe some of those who didn't get to have the answer to the next question, I'll give my time. I'll give my time away because I just really wanted to emphasize the flexibility of it and how important this is for the younger generation.
I just want to applaud Dan on passing on an opportunity to speak. It's unlikely for a member of
great maturity.
Congress. For a member of Congress, that's a rarity. I just want to thank everyone on this stage and the fact that everyone's showing up and putting down any partisan differences and at the end of the day, trying to make some changes that are beneficial for young families because of the I can't highlight enough the stress and the strain. It is my older brother told me one time, he's like, I don't feel sorry for anyone who doesn't have kids. That scores just the stress and the anxiety of it. And so we need to be, I think, as stewards of our tax dollars up here, just making it easier for young parents and not more difficult. And I'm glad to be part of something that's doing that.
I think I'll just recap what I said earlier. This is a phenomenal concept to see government working from grassroots up and to see bicameral, bipartisan government coming together and saying we believe in healthy, stable families. We believe in the American dream is available to every single person in this country, from single moms to very stable families now. And in order to secure our economic momentum right now in this country is investing in its workers, its families, and standing together for the value of what that means for having children, adopting children, and for fostering children in this country that need a good, new, permanent home. And I say to everybody on this stage today, to our president and to those who have been involved, this is what we're seeing is the new age of the American worker, and nobody is left behind. Thank you for all of your interest.
I would just say I'm going to continue to fight for paid family leave and that we get that and that we find a bipartisan consensus. I will say to everyone who's in this space, who works in this area, who is passionate about this, that we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. There are families, as I said, they're making very, very tough choices. I was raised by a single mother. When we were at the end of the month, there were some tough times, and you had to wait till the next paycheck came in. And families can't wait for us to have a complete consensus or one party control or they don't have time for us to do that. They need us to do something now, and they need us to act. I think that's what they sent us here to do. And I think that when you talk to people out there who are really in the throes of this, which I am right now, but we're lucky. But who are really struggling through this, you understand the urgency of this issue. And so I want to thank everyone involved with this panel and with the legislation that we are considering, because I do think that this is not the kind of an issue that we can put off and just say, well, this is our end goal and it's going to be 10, 20 years before we do something about this. I'm hoping that we can have something done much sooner than that. And I think with conversations like this is how that happens.
Well, as the only grandma on the panel, or glamma, I'll say, I'm happy to have paved the way, all right? And literally, it's far overdue. Our time is now. We are the only industrialized country in the world without a paid family leave program. And I'm going to do everything I can, as I have through my entire working world, to make sure that we are doing the right thing, right by our families, by our children, by our workers, by our taxpayers. The time is past due, and it is up to us to act and to act now and to act together. So thank you all for your tremendous interest. It is a labor of love.
So thank you to the panel, and thank you all to you. I've been reflecting over the last hour about the Women's Bureau, and next year the Women's Bureau will be 100 years old on June 20th. And thinking about issues as they relate to helping working families is something we've been working on for a long time. So the fact that we're poised to make paid family leave a reality is truly remarkable. So I want to thank all of you for being here, everyone and watching online as well, for your commitment to America's working families. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good to see you.
We're going to go on there.
Now, I want to say first thing is we just saw the most exciting panels because we saw what bipartisanship can do. We also heard that there's a sense of urgency, and that sense of urgency is truly what we need to help get these things done for our families. So we will now be joined by leaders within the private sector for a panel on early childhood education and child care, moderated by Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Azar. Please welcome Barry Downing, President and CEO of North Rock Incorporated, Jim Sorensen, founder of Catalyst Opportunity Funds and Sorensen Impact Foundation, Jack Brennan, Chairman Emeritus and former CEO of Vanguard, Jack McBride, CEO of Contech, and Cheryl Oldham, Vice President of Education Policy at the United States Chamber of Commerce. Here's our panel.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Is my microphone working okay? No? It's not coming through. Lynn, how about I borrow that one just so that? Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here. I'm really grateful to be here today for this important gathering. And I'd like to thank everyone involved in putting it together, as well as all the members of Congress and the Senate, the governors that are in attendance today. Really just a great event, and what a showing of bipartisan support around these important initiatives. You know, one of the reasons that I'm so proud to work for President Trump is his focus on ensuring that the U.S. is the best place in the world to work and to raise a family. The president's policies have allowed the private sector to generate more than 7 million new jobs since he took office. 7 million new opportunities for American families to prosper.
And I'm grateful to Ivanka also for her efforts to help working families benefit from these incredible opportunities. Helping Americans attain self-sufficiency and economic independence is a key part of HHS's mission, and affordable quality childcare is an essential piece of that work. This year, led by our fantastic Assistant Secretary Lynn Johnson, who's been coordinating everything today, HHS has held 10 regional child care roundtables to engage directly with parents, providers, and employers. Over 900 stakeholders, including almost 100 of our employers. I was actually able to join Ivanka at the roundtable in Kansas City, from which we have some familiar faces here today. Those discussions informed the child care principles that the administration released today. Employers are key to this discussion because lack of affordable childcare can be a real barrier to an employee taking a job. Employers can help break down these barriers, and childcare can help them attract workers and reduce turnover. The business and nonprofit leaders that we have here today could discuss many of these issues. Why does childcare matter to employers and employees? Where are we seeing promising solutions? How can the government and the private sector work together on providing solutions? We've got a great panel here to discuss these topics today. We've got my friend Cheryl Oldham, who is Vice President of Education Policy and Senior Vice President of Education Workforce at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We have Barry Downing, CEO of North Rock, a financial services company in Kansas and founder of the Opportunity Project, a public-private partnership to improve early childhood education. Jim Sorensen is here, founder of the Catalyst Opportunity Zone Fund and the Sorensen Impact Foundation, and a leader in Utah on public-private partnerships, including around childcare and pre-K. Jack Brennan, Chairman Emeritus of the financial services company and giant Vanguard, a philanthropist and leader on early childhood issues, and a member of the Pennsylvania Early Learning Investment Commission. And finally, Jack McBride, CEO of Contech, a South Carolina global cleaning supplies firm and a philanthropic leader on early childhood issues. Let's kick things off first by just asking each of them to provide some brief opening remarks. You want to get us kicked off?
Sure. Yeah. Let's just move it out to this area. Let's just stuff it underneath those chairs if you can't see it.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning. And I'm here as a concerned business owner and a child care philanthropist as well. Early education issues are impacting our ability to run successful businesses and maintain quality of life in our communities. And if we're to compete successfully in the global economy, build better communities, we have to do that and address the current crisis in child care, because it is truly a crisis at the moment. Families are too often faced with impossible choices, resulting in their inability to find affordable place to house their children while they're working during the day or sometimes at night. But parents need to receive safe and quality child care for their little ones. More and more often, these children are being placed in unsafe and certainly low-quality settings for daycare. What we find is only 1 in 10 daycare facilities in the country meet the standard of true high quality, and 90% of our children are not receiving the service that they deserve and need. Surveys show that due to cost constraints, only 1 in every 10 of these people are able to achieve that service. So it's a crisis that we have. Our solution has been to, as we've talked, our solution is to take a public-private partnership position in this, because it's too expensive just to have one funder or another to be able to challenge this or change this huge problem. So we're all for early education, and we're all for childcare, and we're all for a solution that is flexible and fits everyone. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great to be here. Can you hear me? Jim Sorensen. I'm here as a father, as a grandfather, I'm trying to keep up with the Romneys. I have 23 grandchildren. We're working on. We need one more, and we'll be there. But very concerned, obviously, as a father and grandfather about the next generation. I'm also an impact investor, and an impact investor invests in businesses or social enterprises that address problems in society. And I can think of no better ultimate return in that regard than in investing in the next generation. And that's in child care, it's in early childhood education, and in those very formative years when the brain is developing and the children are going to be establishing patterns and ways that will affect them the rest of their lives. And as also an entrepreneur and a business owner, I know how important this is for the workforce, being able to have a workforce that is confident to be able to take care of their family and have the resources to do that, I think is really important today. About 56% of the children ages up to 6 have parents that both work in Utah. So and 30% of those cite child care and taking care of children and the issues at home in those formative years as being affecting their ability to work, their ability to work the number of hours and be as productive as they might be. So I think these are really important issues and a great opportunity for the public sector and business to be able to lead out in helping to solve.
Great, thank you. Cheryl?
To wait a sec. Good. Thank you so much. Thanks for allowing me to be here. I'm obviously here representing the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber Foundation, but I'm also a mom, a single mom of 2 boys, and this is not just a women's issue, and how great it is to be up here with 5 men who are here to talk about childcare and the importance of it. I think it's awesome. And so the Chamber, largest organization representing the interests of business in this country, we took this issue on about 4 or 5 years ago, and thank you, Governor Bryant, for mentioning the report that we released, The Workforce of Today, The Workforce of Tomorrow, and we really got into this conversation because we knew childcare, very important work support, but we were also a little bit wanting to have a conversation, broaden a conversation beyond just 4-year-olds. And we wanted to talk about the really important role of childcare as an early education setting for babies. So again, the Workforce of Today, support your really important to the business community, support their current employees, but also a really important foundation for readiness into kindergarten and beyond. And so we took that report out on the road, and we partnered with many of our state and local chamber partners. We've got a few of them here in the audience today. Raise your hand. These are really, really great advocates and partners for you all in communities. They are taking a report like this, and they are really trying to figure out what is needed in their community. And when we took this on the road to make the sort of the business case for why you should care about childcare, it was not hard. We found a willing and receptive audience, and we learned a few things along the way. They need help. They need to understand what role they can play, and as an employer, what is the best thing they can do to support both their employees and their community. And so there's 3 things I'll say real quickly. Important to figure out the need. Like, what is the need? You need to a really sort of low cost and sort of first step that employers can make is to survey their employees and really understand what are the needs of the people that are working for them. The second is to understand the context of the community in which they live. So on-site childcare may not be the answer for every employer in the country. In fact, we know it's not. And so understanding the context of the community in which they live, the Missoula Chamber is here, for example. Kim is an amazing CEO, and she has really taken a leadership role to sort of survey, understand what the community's needs are, work with both providers in Missoula, but then also the development community, real estate developers, to really think of innovative ways to open new child care centers. And so understanding that context for them was really important. Another really important context piece is understanding the economic sort of case for childcare in your community. And so the Association of Washington Business is here. They did a great report. Louisiana has done one with the business community's leadership. The Metro Atlantic Chamber has done this to really understand what is the economic impact both to business but the economy at large for breakdowns in childcare. And then third is to then figure out what are the options. What is it on-site childcare? Maybe it's providing backup care. In the case of Home Depot, for example, it's predictive scheduling and back for their hourly wage employees, and then helping with backup care. So there's lots of options out there, and employers are really digging into this issue. And we hope that at the Chamber we're playing a little bit of a role to help them to figure that out in partnership with our network all across the country. Happy to be here.
Hi. So Contec is a company we started in 1988 with 2 people, and we're now 550 in Spartanburg, manufacturing wipes, mops, and pre-saturated wipes for high-tech manufacturing, particularly the pharmaceutical market. And what we see is with our 550 associates, our hourly associates come in, and we have 360 hourly associates, start about $13.50 an hour, and then the average is around $18.50 an hour. And at those pay rates, we know they really can't afford great quality childcare. And in the organizations that I've been a part of, understanding the importance of those first 3 years of life when 80% of brain growth is going on and a huge percentage of brain development is going on, they really need to have quality childcare that is going to engage children and teach them and get them ready to learn by the time they get to 5K. So one of the initiatives that we've been involved in Spartanburg is the Basics, which was started by Dr. Ron Ferguson up at Harvard. And it's 5 simple skills that are wonderfully easy to explain. They don't require great education or income level. And so we're trying to roll that out both with our own employees and everybody in Spartanburg. So Contec has hired somebody to be the community coordinator for the Basics in Spartanburg. But really, we want to try and figure out how we're not big enough to do on-site childcare, but we'd like to help our employees during those first critical 3 years. And we're hoping there's some solutions that allow us, as now a mid-sized company, to help our employees get that quality childcare that is going to make the rest of their child's life more productive, and also that parent-child relationship so much better as the family grows.
Great, thank you, Jack number 1. Jack Brennan number 2.
Jack number 2. First, thank you for having us, and really to the administration for the emphasis you're putting on this issue. I have the privilege of co-chairing a CEO task force for Ready Nation around this issue. We've been at this for 10 or 12 years. And this is the best momentum I think we've seen, Mr. Secretary, over that period of time. And what we've built is a network of business leaders like our colleagues up here. And at the state level, in some ways, we've been ahead of the federal level, I think, in terms of advocacy, creating advocacy and creating awareness. And so I'm here and privileged to be here because it's the federal government now talking about it in a bipartisan way. Very inspirational to hear the senators and the congressman this morning talk about this. But for all the reasons everyone has said, it's a critical issue. It's a short-term issue, absenteeism and other things in the workplace. But it's a long-term issue if we want to be globally competitive. You know, we started as a company with 13 people, and it's now 17,000 people around the world. But who's going to do that next if they don't have a ready-made workforce full of children ready to learn when they get to kindergarten and go at it? So you've got all the advocates you want around the country who want to do this and have proven capabilities to make it happen locally, and the national emphasis is something that's very exciting to see. So thanks for letting us be here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. Let's get, we'll hit some questions now. And Cheryl, Jack McBride raised the issue of solutions, of innovative ideas out there. What are some of the things that you're seeing out in the business community? That's one of the things the Chamber can really do, is be a kind of knowledge sharing hub, center of excellence. What are some of the things you're seeing around efforts to have childcare be more innovative and help us retain and attract talent?
Yeah. So I'd encourage everyone to go to uschamberfoundation.org, but we have case studies really talking about a lot of things that are happening. But a couple things. So, Workday was one that I didn't mention. They, have been surveying their employees for forever to understand what their needs are, what they can do to be helpful and provide what employees are looking for. A restaurant on campus, a gym on campus. What they didn't realize until they really dug into the data is that if they sort of narrowed in on the 30 to 40-year-old employees, the issue of childcare was coming up. It was sort of getting lost in the broader survey, but if they narrowed in on that population, they really understood childcare was a huge issue. And now that they know, they're starting to figure out what are the options. I mentioned, Home Depot's got on-site childcare. We've got chambers that are all over the country that are really helping to make this economic case. And I think it's really important because it then brings, it's sort of a rallying cry for all the stakeholders in this conversation. It's a way that business and advocates can come together with those hard data points and really make the case in their community. As I mentioned, Missoula is doing some really interesting things to use to support current providers in expanding by using unused property in the town. I mean, this is a big deal, right? There's an unused, building. How can we use it for a childcare setting? And these are all things that the business community is really playing an important role in sort of herding these efforts on the ground.
Well, great. Thank you, Cheryl. Barry, could you talk about the Opportunity Project, the work that you've done there, and specifically what kinds of outcomes you're measuring, and what kind of data do you have on the kids that have gone through that program?
We started the Opportunity Project 15 years ago in Wichita, Kansas, and it started as a public-private partnership. We raised around $15 million from various private and public partners and built 3 large centers. Now it's actually 4 now, 800 children. We have graduated about 3,000 children over that period of time, so we have a great deal of experience in assessing what seems to work with at-risk populations. As far as the longitudinal study, we track kindergarten readiness as well, but longitudinally, the oldest children are graduating from high school just now. And so what we find is that overall kindergarten readiness for the at-risk populations that we serve are up from 35% incoming to 85% outgoing as they're delivered to the public system. In particular, socio-behavioral measures are twice as likely to be in the top 20% of their class. So it's not only a cognitive development program, but also socio-behavioral, which is, of course, just in some cases just as important. We have increased high school attendance rates. The absenteeism is reduced significantly with these children that get high-quality care. We see increased GPAs. And the children more likely in math and science to achieve grade level results in kindergarten at 12. And most importantly, and when you look at the dollars and cents here, there's a 35% reduced need for early education services as they hit the K-12 systems. So that alone is a huge return on investment for the program. But we are so happy to be able to do this, and we just need to expand to scale and get other children involved to have the maximum benefit.
Great, thank you very much. So Jack Brennan, you mentioned your advocacy work, and as a member of the Pennsylvania Early Learning Investment Commission, what are the Commission's priorities for improving access to child care in Pennsylvania, and how does it relate to workforce development?
Well, the Commission's been around for, I think, 11 years now through multiple and different political party governorships, and it's a governor-appointed commission. Our priorities are around a couple of things. First is quality, and second is access, and they're coincident. And the goal is literally, it gets down to almost retail. How many children do we have served, and how many are left to be served in a high quality? We have a rating system in Pennsylvania, which is called the Keystone Stars, and it's 0 stars to 4. It's things you can imagine. It's safety, it's quality of the teaching staff and the facility and so on. And our goal is to continue to have funded star-based programs available in the rural parts of Pennsylvania, which we have lots of, and in the inner cities, which we have a couple of big ones and some other smaller ones. And so it's all around access and quality. Access and quality is what we talk about continually. And it ends up being a federal, state, and private partnership, if you will. We're grateful for the block grant, the increased block grant we've gotten, and we put that half of that money this year, just the difference between what we had and what we got, to raising the subsidy rates for children to participate in these. So again, we literally look every year at how many kids are served and how many are yet to be served, and that is the goal, is to eventually get that last number to 0 and the other one to 100%. And it's tough. We've made a lot of progress over the decade, but we've got a long way to go.
Great. Thank you very much. Hey, Jim, one of the principles for child care reform that we've released here out of the White House today involves building the supply of child care and increasing choices for families. Could you tell us a bit about what you touched on, which is leveraging social impact financing, a public-private model, to bring in outside capital to expand and improve the quality of child care in Utah?
You bet. First of all, let me say I'm also happy to be part of the Ready Nation group. It's been ahead on this for some time, and it's really great to see now the White House and the bipartisan efforts that are being made. But as an impact investor, I became aware of a very interesting, innovative approach to funding social services. And the concept is a private-public partnership where investors essentially fund an intervention, let's say early childhood education. There's a lot of data around the measurement of the success, and it's usually focused on an outcome. Now in Utah, the very first initiative for early childhood education was done, and it was focused on investors investing in early childhood education in programs that had been shown to be very successful in reducing the need for special education for at-risk populations, about 90% in terms of the data that had been generated. And investors took the risk, made the investment, Goldman Sachs, their Urban Development Fund, and it was de-risked by the Pritzker Foundation. So some innovation in the capital stack itself, and about $7.5 million was raised, and the students were from at-risk populations, the children, starting at age 3, and then measured through the fourth grade in terms of their education proficiency. And I think the program's been a remarkable success in terms of reducing the need, and the cost of special education in the state of Utah is about $3,000 per year per student. And so this was used in the calculation for the ultimate repayment to investors based on the success of the program. Very outcomes driven. And it has reduced the need for special education by an average of about 80 to 90% in this at-risk group. I think the other remarkable thing about it is that after it was passed and as it was seen to be successful, the legislature appropriated additional funding for early childhood education, funding that probably would not have been appropriated. And they're basing the funding based on the same rigorous approach to focus on data and outcomes measurement. So I think there's a real benefit in engaging in private-public partnerships, the financial resources that can come for such an important issue as early childhood education and early childhood care.
Well, thank you. And Jack McBride, so you have a challenge because of this red-hot economy. Your company's located in Spartanburg County, South Carolina, which has a 1.6% unemployment rate and 3,500 open manufacturing jobs. How's that impacted your company's ability to get access to childcare, to get employees, and what are some of the great steps that you think could be taken there?
Well, we're all struggling to get enough employees. Obviously, those numbers speak for themselves. But we also have probably 7,000 or 8,000 people in Spartanburg County that are not counted in those workforce numbers anymore. A lot of them being single moms that, if they had good quality childcare, could get back into the workforce. One of the problems that we're seeing in terms of childcare is we're just not paying childcare providers enough money in the teachers. I was talking to a principal at our leading childcare center. She just lost a woman that was a great teacher she was making $21,000 a year. She went to work for Chick-fil-A to make $27,000 a year, which is what she would get paid to stack wipes in our clean room. Yes, it's very hard to attract employees right now. We actually had to move some production to our plant in China, which our plant in China was built to service the Asian market, but if we can't get enough people to do the jobs, we have to satisfy our customers. So it's a challenge in many ways.
Great. Well, Jack, thank you very much. And please join me in a round of applause to thank all of our panelists on this topic. And I think we'll be taking a brief break now as we reset the stage for our host.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
you so much for tuning in. My name is Bailey Hill, reporting live with Right Side Broadcasting Network from studio. I just wanted to thank you guys for being here and viewing the live stream. So you actually heard from various government officials and other lawmakers regarding the Summit on Childcare and Paid Leave. The president is expected to speak shortly, any moment now. So we will take that as soon as he begins speaking. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure, if you haven't already, to like and share our stream. You can also subscribe to our channel and hit the bell notification. That way you'll never miss another President Trump rally. We're really excited for the next one. That's going to be next week in Battle Creek, Michigan. Liz Willis and Max Kleiber, along with Joseph Petrie, will be at that rally. So again, that's Battle Creek next week. Be sure to hit that bell notification so you know when we go live, and we look forward to sharing that with you. So thank you guys so much again for tuning in. We're expecting the president moments from now. Keep it right here on Right Side. Thanks, guys.
Family is the true bedrock of American life. We passed a massive tax cut for working families and doubled the child tax credit. Median household income is now at the highest level in the history of our country.
Our agenda is lifting up Americans of every background, race, religion, color, and creed.
Our moral obligation is to the American workers, and we're committed to helping them climb that great ladder of success. To equip them with the skills they need, we launched the Pledge to America's Workers. I am also proud to be the first president
Good afternoon, everyone. It has been an incredible summit, and I would like to thank you all for being here. As we conclude this inaugural summit on supporting American working families, we are delighted to be joined by a man who ran for office on the promise of lifting up the forgotten men and women of this country, and that is exactly what he has done. For nearly 3 years, the president has delivered on one promise after another. And under his leadership, families have never had a brighter future. In every action he takes, the president is putting American families first, because since day one, he has recognized that strong and thriving families are the greatest source of American success and the best hope for America's future. Together, with the help of everyone in this room today, we will support American families, build up our communities, strengthen our economy, and enable every child to grow, thrive, and achieve the American dream. Now, with great pleasure, I'd like to introduce the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you. What a nice group. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Hi. Well, thank you very much. And I had a very busy time and a very busy day, and my daughter said, "You will be here." So that was the end of that busy day, right? When a daughter says you have to be here, but she's done such an incredible job. So I want to thank Ivanka. And from the very beginning, it's true. Yeah. From the very beginning, it's been an extraordinary, she has been so extraordinary in terms of her advocacy for America's working families. 14 million people she's gotten jobs for, where she'd go into Walmart, she'd go into our great companies and say, they really want help. They really want you to teach them, because the government can't teach like the companies can teach. And companies would take 500,000 people, 1 million people. And her goal when she started it 2 years ago was 500,000 jobs. She's done over 14 million, so that's really something. And that's on top of everything else, including what we're here for today. I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for being here, and to the White House Summit on Child Care and Paid Family Leave, a subject that's a very big subject nowadays. We're pleased to be joined by Secretary Alex Azar. Alex, thank you very much. And thanks as well to Governor Phil Bryant, my friend for a long time. And we have, thank you, Phil. And we really, we have developed a fantastic relationship over the years, and it's been incredible. And what a job he does. And I don't know, I have a feeling he's leaving office, not because he had to. He was leading everybody in the polls in that great state where we just had a tremendous victory in Mississippi, but he was leading by a lot. I say, Phil, why don't you run again? No, I think we're going to take it a little easy. See, he has a lot of confidence in himself. Non-confident people would say, I got to run. But Phil, you've done a fantastic job, and we appreciate it. And Mayor Betsy Price. Mayor, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're also grateful to be and have with us members of Congress from both sides of the aisle, and many of them participated today. I saw a list of a who's who in Congress, and we appreciate it very much. Many of them have spoken. We're here today to support the heroic calling for working moms and dads to really help them. We're going to help them. We're going to help them a lot. American families are the heart, soul, and backbone of our nation. Strong and loving families build up our neighborhoods, sustain our communities, invigorate our cities, pass down our values, and make a brighter future for every citizen. In the Trump economy, which is setting records every day, in fact, the stock market's up very substantially today, as some of you may know. And when it goes up, I think of 401ks. I used to think about stock. Now I think about 401ks and I think about jobs. But it's up tremendously today. In the Trump economy, American families are thriving like never before. Just last week, we announced that we smashed expectations and created 266,000 jobs in November, a number that was unthinkable a day before. A day before, they were guessing, would it be 80? Would it be 90? Would it be 160? Somebody said, an optimist. and this was 266,000 plus. You can add from the previous months because we're adding some of the jobs they miscalculated on our side as opposed to the opposite side, the positive way. So 266, almost 300,000 jobs in November, which is an incredible number. 7 million jobs have been added since Election Day. And I have to say, other nations are not doing well. Other parts of the world are not doing well at all. You look at Europe, you look at Asia, look at a lot of different places. We won't talk about China because we're working a deal with China. But I wouldn't say up until now they've loved me. Unemployment is a 50-year low, and the African American, Hispanic American, and Asian American unemployment rates have all reached their lowest levels ever recorded. So the lowest level ever recorded in the history of our country. And by the way, for women, the lowest in 71 years, but soon will be historic also. I have to apologize for the 71 years. That's probably my worst statistic, best in 71 years. I say, can you imagine? Normally that would have been a great statistic for us, Phil, but nowadays we're a little spoiled, right? But we've lifted nearly 1.4 million American children out of poverty. And this year, 40 million American families will benefit from the Republican child tax credit, each receiving an average of over $2,200. That's something. And that's, let's put the word Republican again. Let's emphasize it, because I notice every time we do something, the Democrats try and say, we really did it, you know, we did. They didn't do it, but we'll be very nice. We want to be bipartisan. In everything we do, we're putting the American families first, and frankly, we're putting America first. But American families are coming first. With more women working today than ever before, we now have a historic opportunity to enact long overdue reforms. It's time to pass paid family leave and expand access to quality. So we're going to have really an expanded access to quality, affordable child care in addition for all American parents. And it's something that could take a long time before it ever got done, but we're going to get it done. And we're working with a lot of tremendous people, many of whom are in the room, and I want to thank you for that. An estimated 1 out of every 4 American moms returns to work within 2 weeks of giving birth because they cannot afford to miss a paycheck or risk losing their job. We want every mother to have the chance to spend those precious few weeks with her newborn or adopted child. And I understand statistically, they show statistically it's so much better for the baby and growing up, even in later years. I can imagine that. And Martha, I want to thank you for being here. I just see you. Martha McSally, everybody. Senator, that's very nice. Thank you. And I'll tell you, would you please stand up? All of you. It's so great. So great. Thank you. Thank you. Congresswomen have done a fantastic job. Thank you. That's why it's my state, and in my State of the Union address, I called for Congress to pass paid family leave into law, and it was very well received, I have to say. 1 week ago, we were thrilled that members of Congress introduced bipartisan, really a very strong bipartisan legislation, paid family leave legislation, and that's what it's called. We did criminal justice reform, and we called it by a slightly different name, and a lot of people don't know that it's criminal justice reform. I said, change the name. But somebody put it with a name. It's First Step Act, which is good, but it's criminal justice reform. And in this case, we're going to just go with a very perfect name, paid family leave legislation. Jackie, is that good? Yes? I think Jackie will do it for you, okay? There's something about using a name that sort of, you don't have to think too much, right? This week, my administration reached a historic deal with Congress. The federal government will now give 12 weeks of paid family leave to all federal employees, something that nobody expected. And as a candidate for president, I pledge to advance paid family leave. With this important step, we are delivering, and we're really delivering like nobody's, I think, ever delivered before. If you look back, certainly within the first 3 years of a presidency, and we're still short of the third year, we're getting close. Hard to believe we're getting close. January 20th, we'll be there. But in less than 3 years, we've done things, and I always say that I fulfilled more promises than I made, which is the first for a politician. For a politician, that's the first, Mark. My administration is also focused on expanding access to high-quality, affordable child care. Last year, I was proud to sign into law the largest ever increase in child care development block grants to states. The states understand that very well. A lot of governors come up to me and they thank me for that. In more than 60% of American homes, both parents work, yet many struggle to afford child care, which often costs more than $10,000 per year. And it's devastating to families, frankly, devastating. Here with us today is Seyon Mama, who has benefited from child care assistance and is now earning her degree in early childhood education while raising her 2 young, beautiful children. Seyon, would you come up, please, and say a few words? Seyon. Please. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last year, I started working at the Guadalupe Center in Kansas City as an assistant teacher. At the same time, I began taking classes to earn a credential in early childhood education. Before I started my job, my husband and I were able to put our youngest daughter into daycare with the help of child care subsidy. If we didn't have the support, we wouldn't have been able to afford daycare, and I wouldn't have been able to work and go to school to become a teacher. Now, both of my daughters are going to preschool in the same building where I work. It's very convenient for my family, and I am so close that I was able to check on my daughters during the day she got sick. So thank you, President,
Well, thank you, sir.
for everything that you're doing to support families like mine.
Thank you very much for saying that. Beautiful. Thank you, Seyon. As Ivanka announced earlier this morning, the White House released our principles for child care reform. Our goal is simple. We want to expand child care options and reduce unnecessary regulations so that parents can choose the best care for their children, including, and very importantly, in-home and faith-based care. With us today is Bethany Brittany Hazeman, a single mother who runs her own child care center in Fruita, Colorado. And Brittany, if you could, please come up and say a few words. Please, thank you. Thank you.
Wow, what an honor it is to be here today. Thank you so much. And you, Ivanka Trump, thank you so much for all you do. It's truly a blessing. About 11 years ago, I was put in a tough position. My husband passed away in a car accident. I was a now single mom of soon-to-be 3 children. I had to provide for them all by myself. And childcare for 3, all under the age of 3, and my oldest with autistic tendencies, was not an option. I was going to school for criminal justice at this time and could no longer have that as my dream. For my 3 children, only had one parent. I opened up a child care in 2010 out of my home. Now, I own a large home site. I signed on with Early Learning Ventures. In 2015, now I am an executive director to my very own center. Thank you. Thank you. Being in the childcare business, I know all the struggles. There are some major challenges. The cost of childcare for our families. Background checks and those timelines are very challenging. Hiring staff based on credentials, not growing teachers that fit the right reasons with what's best for the children and their age groups, and the cost of qualified teachers. That being said, my dreams for them, children, have just begun. It takes a county and a state and a country to be the best. Thank you, President Trump, for making it priority to help our families get access to quality care.
Thank you.
Yes. On behalf of Little Imaginations, we would like to invite Ivanka Trump, Donald. If you guys ever get in Colorado, come see our site. Thank you.
No, we'll be there. We'll be in Colorado. Thank you. Great job. Thank you. Thank you very much, Brittany. And we'll be in Colorado a lot, actually. We have a great senator in Colorado. We have to get him extended. I'll be there a lot. So we know that every American parent like Brittany wants the best for their child, and every American family strengthens and uplifts our country. That's why on issues like child care, to paid family leave, to school choice, my administration is putting control back into the hands of parents where it belongs. With this initiative, we have a chance to give all moms and dads the resources and support they need to succeed, thrive, flourish, prosper, and help their sons and daughters reach their amazing God-given potential. It's what's happening. It's what's happening with our country as a whole. As Americans, we know the single most important investment we can ever make is in our nation's children. I want to again thank everybody for being here, and thank you all to the people that work so hard. I mean, I know how hard and tirelessly you fight for the American family constantly. I want to thank my daughter who's every minute of every day is working on something that's good. In this case right now, that's what we're doing, but she's got other things in mind also. It's incredible what she's able to get done. And I have to give her a very special thank you. Ivanka is a very special person. And thank you. I just say, God bless everybody in the room. Thank you very much for the incredible work. You work so hard, so tirelessly, but the rewards are there. With this administration, you get the rewards. With other administrations, it just never worked. But we get it done. They may like me, they may not, but we get it done. Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen.